thank you everybody for coming. We appreciate everybody signing in on our Zoom call for today and our movement of our meeting from last week to this week to make sure we were able to be cognizant of Veterans Day last week. So thanks everybody for accommodating the change. Jane sent out in the packet the minutes. Has everybody had an opportunity to look at the minutes, or do you want to look at them very quickly?
I've read them. I'll move to approve.
Okay, thanks, Jackie. Second, Paul. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Larry always wants us to do the roll call, so if I'll indulge, I'll read everybody's names. Julie?
Yeah. Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Jackie?
Yes.
Alex?
Yes.
Tracy?
Yes.
And I think that's it. And I wonder if we need to do roll call too, Julie.
Okay, that's fine. I didn't do that to start with. So
Sorry.
do you want to call what you call the name and it? What we just say here?
Sure.
Okay.
Julie?
Here.
Karen?
Yes, here.
Mary?
Here.
Scott?
Here.
Paul?
Here.
Jackie?
Here.
Alex?
Here.
Tracy? And while we wait for Tracy, I'll say Kate.
Here.
Kate's not here. Tracy's here. And then Jane Cooper Smith, staff. Sean?
Sean Starwood, staff.
And Larry?
Larry Allen, staff.
And Kevin Curran, looks like he's still connecting to audio, so I'll say Kevin Curran, staff. And Marnina Patrick, staff. And I think that's everybody.
Great. Thanks, everybody. Jane, I think that we'll move on to the financial reports.
Sure. I'm hoping Kevin can walk us through, but it looks like he's having a bit of trouble. So I'll get us started on the
Do you want
P&L.
to do the director's report first and then come back to the financial reports?
It's fine. I mean, the director's report this month is effectively the financial reports. I guess the directors, yeah, we'll just go through. It's fine.
Okay.
So walking through the P&L, we're looking at cumulative through October at our total income at 613,845. Oh, I need to share my screen. I'm so sorry, guys. Give me just a second here. Okay, can you see the financials? No, you can?
Yes.
Okay, so we're looking at total income of 613,845 for the year. The zone membership fees category is a little high. Some of that will jump into the RDC category, which will pay back to the RDC. And then some of that will be paid to the AIEZ. So for those of you who don't know, or just as a reminder, the majority of our income comes from tax benefits. Businesses who participate pay a percentage of that fee to us. If they're located in the TIF, they pay a percentage to the RDC. And then they all also pay a 1% fee to the state association, the AIEZ. Participating businesses are supposed to write checks to each individual organization. That doesn't often happen. So they write the check straight to the BUEA, and then we wind up with cash that isn't ours and we need to pay it back. So that will happen in the next couple of weeks. We just kind of settled up with the AIEZ and I received an invoice from them, which is great. And then overall, our income is higher this year than what we had anticipated when we looked at the annual budget back in February. So I'll provide those details when we look at the annual budget next month. But
and your thought was that after we write those two checks, roughly our income is going to be in a little over 500,000.
Yes, yeah. I think we anticipated 502, and I think we'll be more like around 520. So,
Okay.
Jane,
yeah.
can I ask you a quick question? Where does that, so right now all that money is in the zone membership fees income, and then where does that come out when you pay it? Are we going to see an expense line? Is it a payable or?
That's an interesting question. The AIEZ wrote us an invoice, which would look like payable.
Yeah.
But I'm
Okay.
afraid that won't look totally correct. And we had that weird subscriptions credit earlier this year that we moved out of subscriptions.
Yeah.
That was a refund for from the AIEZ. And so I think it hasn't really.
Yeah. So they just bill us basically. So it'll be
Yeah.
probably an expense. Okay. Thanks.
There's kind of some three-way record keeping between the assessor's office, us, and the state. And that's
Mhm.
why it takes this long to get to the bottom of everything.
Yeah.
But if you're up for it, Karin, I might consult you about where those lines should live, or I guess Kevin and I can go over that too. But
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. I know Julie and I had met separately with you and Kevin to we might want to, Julie, consider doing another one of those meetings to kind of go
Yeah.
over this.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good idea because technically our zone membership fees are overstated here because
Right.
we've really collected more money. So I don't think it either needs to come out, well, it definitely needs to come out of those funds so we have an accurate total of what our income really is, I think.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, I'll follow up with you guys separately on that then. Moving down to expenses, you can see that we've paid a total of $77,854 out in total grants. I'm not sure what is categorized as a school grant that looks suspiciously like a resident scholarship, but the resident scholarship category is right. So I'm not sure what the school grant is. But anyway, the total paid out to date is there. And then we'll look at my, the sheet of specific programming that we've earmarked to date, and that'll break that out a little further. Insurance expense paid in January, total scholarships out. This has jumped this month, so we've sent out a lot more business scholarships to date, which is really exciting. And then I just posted on social about resident scholarships to try to get the remaining scholarship out the door. Projects, Lemonade Day is standard. Miscellaneous is our support of the Shalom rebrand for total special projects of $7,500 and total expenses out $91,500. Yeah, a little bit of interest income and then net income of $527. Is that good? Does anybody want to look at anything else?
So roughly that's overstated about $100,000. Roughly.
Yeah, I think more like 90, but yeah.
Okay.
Just looking kind of at our health overall. Total current assets, 2,000,003, 36,700 of which is in the form of receivables. Everything else is cash. And then other assets would be these long-term notes, which we've talked about in pretty great detail at this point. And then of course we know that one has been paid back, which is exciting. And then here we are at I'm sorry, I was looking for. No, I'm sorry, I glossed over the receivables. The receivable is what we've had the long-term question about, sorry. So you guys will notice the issue of the receivables and the payables are still hanging out in this balance sheet. We were hoping to have those resolved by this meeting. Kevin has been working with Jeff on getting to the bottom of this. Jeff suspects that this is an issue that arose when, in an effort at simplifying, he switched us to a cash reporting basis. So they were apologetic, making plans to address this in December. And I'm sorry that it's not reconciled yet. It's disappointing, and we don't think there's anything funny going on, but we just need to get those numbers.
I think that we definitely need to have this nailed down by the end of the year, because we've been
Yeah.
asking about it for the whole year. So
Yeah,
I really think it needs to be nailed down,
Yeah.
because, yeah, so we can start out fresh next year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also just for looking at our budget, I feel like we want a good foundation so that we can make solid projections and know exactly where we are with our financial position. I'm not sure if, sorry, I'm looking to see if Kevin has been able to show up. Alex, do you have anything, or Kevin, are you with us? Can you weigh in on this?
No, I agree. I agree with Julie. I think we get this wrapped up. We start 2021 clean and also sort of go back to more of an accrual basis. I think that'll just make life a lot easier all around.
So, sorry, I'm having problems with my Zoom. I'm doing something weird with it. Oh, stop it.
So I just wanted to support that request from Julie too. I mean, at the end of the day, it's sort of like, let's write them off if we don't know what they're for, and just stop, because it's on QuickBooks, whether they're going through hard files or not, I don't know. But, you know, we either need to write them off by the end of the year or get something more than that, something like some detail of why we're keeping it and continuing to look. Like, maybe, I'm sure there's things they've found that maybe they're just like not quite ready, but they need to let us know more specifically what that is, or else just write it off.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
Anybody else have questions there, or anything else related to the financials?
Do we have any more information on two of these? And one probably isn't even on here. The Topolgus Investments and the old Johnson Oil, Standard Oil building there in the 100 block of West First Street, which predates you by quite a bit. This is an old one.
Is that,
do we know anything?
Johnson? Yeah, is Johnson Oil showing up on our?
Probably not.
Yeah, I don't think there is anything outstanding there. And yeah, we're working on the Topolgus question, and
Okay.
have had some activity, so.
Paul, on the Johnson Oil, that was just that when we gave the funds for that rehab of that project, they didn't follow through with exactly what they said. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Because they're trying to sell the building. Is that what you're?
Yeah, for way more than it's worth.
Right. Yeah. I don't think that we've ever.
And I heard from someone else that it hadn't been remediated to the point where one would hope, you know, that Rudy Fields had done remediation, but not up to the highest level. So I don't.
Then continuing financials kind of into this, if no one has more additional questions about the spreadsheets, I'll talk about our funding commitments for 2020 and 2021. For the arts grant category, I'm actually going to point us to Sean's list. We noticed an error in mine, in that I was conflating the annual Zone Arts grant with the additional RRF funding. So his summary is correct, that we're earmarking 15,000 for venues. That has not been funded yet. He's funded 40,000 of the Zone Arts grants this summer. So that was the annual 2020 Zone Arts grants. And then today he's presenting to you the 2020 fall portion of the Recover Forward Arts grants, which will leave $63,550 left in the remaining Recover Forward Arts category. So my number was low, but so it's 63,550 here. For the loan fund, nothing has changed since our last meeting, other than we've had quite a few new inquiries. I gave a presentation to City Council earlier this month, and they extended their gratitude to the BUEA for stepping in and really supporting business in the community this year. So just to re-summarize, we have sent a total of $294,170 out the door. We've had 50,000 repaid, which leaves a total outstanding balance of $244,170. And that means that we currently have available, and it's still available, $105,830. As a reminder, the availability of these funds is tied to the governor's executive orders that extend our state of emergency, and he's making a new announcement today. So the current deadline is 11/26. I think it's arbitrary. I think it's going to get extended as of this afternoon. So these funds are alive and well. If you hear of anybody who might need them, please put them in touch with me.
You mentioned to me you had 4 applications since our last meeting, but they were all funded under the beverage tax.
Yes, they were funded under food and beverage. Each pot of money has its own restrictions. The BUEA's funds are more flexible in that they can support a variety of businesses. A dentist could use them, or an auto repair place, or a restaurant, or whoever, as long as they're in the zone, any business could use them. Whereas the food and beverage funds are restricted only to businesses that support tourism in Bloomington. So that's kind of a mushy definition, but it's clear that, other than the geographic footprint, the BUEA funds are more flexible and they're fewer. So we've been trying to protect them a little bit so that when someone comes along who does need that flexibility, they'll have access to it.
Jane, I have a question.
Yeah.
I understand why the food and beverage revenues are tied to the governor's order, but the BUEA funds, is that just a BUEA decision to also tie it to the governor's order?
Right. The BUEA, when they approved these funds, they tied the kind of lifespan of the loan program to that of the food and beverage fund. So, yeah, and the BUEA could the board could, I think, do whatever it wants with the timing of the program, and you could revisit that at a later meeting. But since it's tied to the life of the food and beverage fund, and that's still alive, I don't think there has been a need to make any changes.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Okay. Zone resident. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, Jane, I apologize. Technical difficulties. Just to go back to the financials, and I appreciate you stepping in for me. I did talk to Jeff. He explained that, basically the payables, receivables have not changed since the end of 2018. And that was when whoever was previously responsible left the company or left the city. And basically, he and I are committed to getting together and going through that. In addition to that, and I think I sent this in an email, I am going to schedule a call with IT, Jeff, and you, because in terms of your access to QuickBooks, he has reset your password multiple times, and I don't think that's the issue. I think it's I think the issue is access to that particular file, and
Okay.
so we will sort that. We will sort that out.
Thanks, Kevin.
So again, I apologize for technical difficulties. I was on another call, and my phone ran out of batteries. So
Thanks, Kevin.
it is, yeah, I apologize. Now I will be silent and let you guys talk about the more important stuff.
Thank you. Okay, in the Zone Resident Scholarship, I think I mentioned we have $2,400 available. And I think as long as we get someone signed up by 12/31, we can deploy those funds. So I've put a call out on social media, but by all means, if you know anybody living in the zone and taking classes, they could be eligible for a $1,200 reimbursement scholarship. The Zone Business Economic Enhancement Scholarship, this is what we discussed last meeting, and it's had a lot of activity, which is really exciting. So we have 17,900 committed, of which we've paid, just a fraction out. I processed some more payments last night. So we have $13,100 left in Economic Enhancement Scholarship Fund. And that can be spent over the course of 2021. So that doesn't disappear if we don't use it this year, but there has been great interest. And many of the businesses, we discussed advertising as a use last meeting. Many of the businesses who applied for advertising funds have pivoted and found different training opportunities. And then some have just pressed pause and are not pursuing the funds. So it's exciting to see that money be utilized. And then the last line related to RRF is this 12.5 that we had earmarked for administration. We're not really doing anything with it yet. This 290 was to pay for some software access through the Community Foundation. We anticipate the remainder of it will be used to pay for loan servicing, and we have talked with a few different CDFIs who provide online servicing in their nonprofits, and it seems like it'll be a really good fit. And then Larry, I'll have to talk with you about what steps we need to take to make a selection if we need to come back to the board at that time. So does anyone have questions about current commitments? Okay, back to you, Julie.
All right, so as next on our list, hang on, I've got my agenda over here on my other computer, hang on.
It's Sean.
It's Sean.
Yeah.
So Sean, I guess you're up. You and Mary have been very busy, and we appreciate everything you guys have done. So do you want to talk a little bit about the fall arts grants?
Yeah, I'm happy to. Really, it's and sorry for the dual monitor thing. Zoom's always a bit of a challenge. So we have, so what I'm presenting, Mary Morgan was involved in this from the BUEA. This is kind of our fall funding based out of the RF Recovery Forward program that we created. Thanks to you all. And really, I just got to thank the BUEA for doubling down and offering support for the arts and cultural organizations. We know that this year has been tremendously hard on every business, every resident, every community member. And so to double down and invest in the arts and culture right now is super, super important. So based off of the previous conversations, we had, allotted a little bit of money for venues that will likely increase since we have that 63 left. We did not get a lot of venues applying technically. So the three that kind of fell into the Rolodex that would be qualified as venues would be the Orbit Room, Buskirk Chumley, and the Blockhouse. Both offer and have consistently offered opportunities for musicians and those kinds of things since they've been around. And then the variety of other kind of programs are all what we really encouraged with this money in this grant program is a lot of collaboration and a lot of online, COVID safe programming. So what you're seeing, almost all of these organizations have pivoted their business model, their nonprofit model to provide arts and culture resources to the community. So Reimagining Opera for Kids is doing this immense green screen interactive performance. And they've been a consistent, great partner for the BUEA. We have a lot of first-time applicants as well. Los Avers is a new classical music composition group that is focusing on Black, Indigenous, and people of color in classical music. So people that have been overlooked. And so to be able to kind of re-release music of various artists. We also have like the Indiana Review, the Writers Conference, which are shifting to online and more accessible programming. So this is a rough recommendation. This was all based off of the scores we got. We had about 7 reviewers. Mary was very thorough and very critical in a good way. And we were able to get these recommendations based off of the pot of money that we allotted for this round. Moving forward, we are hoping to release another grant this week, a grant application that will close before the holiday. And then we will be bringing back similar recommendations in January to the BUEA for kind of a 2021 restart grant for the winter programming as we go into January, February, and March. And then this will coincide with the BAC grants, which we are able to get an increase in next year from the city budget that will be announced in April. So really what we're trying to do is shore up all the arts and cultural organizations for an easy ramp up as we get out of COVID, so that they're not falling short. Part of the requirements that we're tracking to is loss of staffing, various changes, and then also every group has to, it's in the requirement of the MOU to make sure that they're paying tribute to the BUEA and all marketing and online materials, making sure that your name is, the BUEA name is getting out there and in front of people. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Sorry, that was a lot to throw at you all, but it's been a very thorough but fun process and lots of exciting collaborations and projects happening out of this specific cohort of grants specifically.
So Sean, I was looking at like Forgotten Clefs, that they got more than they actually requested.
Oh, okay. That is a goof up on my end. I'm sorry. That was supposed to be the same. That actually should be flipped. They requested 2,500. They're getting 22,275. That's a copy and paste error.
Have we worked with the History Center before?
No, not specifically. So that's a new collaborative that's doing, let me bring up their, let's see. Let me bring up my master sheet. The History Center is doing an oral history project and actually collecting and archiving the COVID-19 pandemic as a kind of archive for the community. And we'll preserve these stories through digital video, audio, and so future generations can hear from community members about the COVID-19 impact, so that in another 100 years when we have a pandemic, they'll know how to deal with it. No, I'm just kidding. But that's a first-time BUEA recipient. Indiana Review, IU Writers Conference, the Writer Magazine, which has been around for 30 years. We were really excited to see them apply. Let's see, who else? Yeah.
And Sean, is the action that you're looking for today board approval of these allocations?
Yeah, with the edit to the Forgotten Clefs error.
Okay.
Error, but yes, the recommendation would be to approve this body of grants to these organizations.
So I have one more question. So the 3, Blockhouse Bar, Buskirk Chumley, and Orbit Room, which are those So will those come out of the 15,000, or I was just a little bit confused as to how that was going to work.
Yeah, so what came up is, I believe Mary mentioned this in the past, so did Councilperson Sue Scambilleri and Jane. We've all been very sensitive to the venues in our community. So the total pot of money is $112,500 for the Arts and Culture Recovery Fund.
Okay.
And what we did for this specific round was saying, we're going to allot $15,000 to see who applies. And these are the 3 that applied. I also talked to Dave from Bluebird. There's a couple other venues. The Bishop is another venue that, Secretly Group requires most of their performers to utilize. But these were the only 3 that technically applied that were eligible under that kind of platform. So with the remaining amount, that might increase because the Bluebird might apply next round. So we'll just kind of see who applies. Part of it too is that venues traditionally are not doing arts and culture programming and not used to doing grants. So we're changing some of the questions that we're asking so that venues feel more comfortable applying. It was kind of a barrier for entry in a couple different ways where, but we're keeping some things very consistent, like equity issues, asking about what is your legacy of equity and inclusion and powers and privilege, and how you're recontracting that. That's something that the BUEA has been interested in. So that's why that pot of money is set aside just for this round. So we're distributing 7,000 out of that, like what we allotted for. So we'll next go around, we have 63,550 to address. So that might be 20,000 that goes towards venues. We'll just see who applies and where the need is, frankly. That's
and
kind of
that can be used for operations too, right, Sean?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then just to be crystal clear, you'll come back to the board for approval of those allocations as well.
Yeah, in the ideal timeline would be January. Obviously, I'm talking with a lot of arts and culture stakeholders with the numbers right now. We kind of gotta, people are trying to do programming. I mean, it's all been online, but I think a little people are kind of holding their breath to see what Thanksgiving, how that shakes out. But the ideal scenario would be to come back in January, knowing what the spring could look like. But we just kind of don't know too. I mean, my hope is to come back in January with recommendations. But I'm engaging with a lot of arts and culture stakeholders just to see where they're feeling and how things are shaking out for them.
So Jane, do we need an approval of these? Is that what we need?
Yep, I think you need a motion and a second and a vote for the funding. We're not talking about the venue fund today, the total of, Sean, what's the corrected amount? We need to drop 225. So I don't need to put my glasses on. 48,725. Is that correct?
Yes.
So, okay. So does anyone have any more questions for Sean or Mary on this list?
I just have one. Sorry.
Just a comment that I'm so pleased that the Arts Council is doing, is making these decisions for us. Before we were trying to do, before we were more hands-on, and my level of expertise in arts related issues is next to nil. So I'm pleased with the Arts Council.
Yeah, that's good.
And I just wanted to make sure I understood what we were approving. So, and also just to echo what Paul said, thank you, Sean and Mary, for doing all this work. It's really awesome to see the kind of impact that we can have on the arts in Bloomington. So thank you for your work on this. I know it's not easy. Just to be clear on the very bottom, so the 15,000 is part of that 112 or it's separate?
It's part of that 112, yeah. So
okay.
It's just
gotcha.
Like this round, we said, let's allot 15,000. Let's see who applies and see if because I kind of did that based off of how many venues there were that were eligible. So Blockhouse, Bluebird, and then so I said, oh, let's say everybody gets 2,500. Just if they score well.
Okay.
That's where we kind of got that protection.
Gotcha. Okay.
So we're actually funding 7,000 of the 15,000 right now.
Yes.
And it's coming out of that 112.
Yeah, the total package. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I Sean, are you planning to do any publicity surrounding these awards, a press release or
Yep.
social media? Okay.
Yeah. So we will that's a great point, Mary. Thank you for bringing that up. We will, I've been in communication with the IEL. There's going to be a larger press release that goes out today on all RF Recovery Forward initiatives. And then Friday, or potentially maybe even tomorrow, there'll be another press release that is solely about the next grant application and these recipients. So we'll try to get some good PR about that and getting the word out to. We have a lot of young commissioners. Paul, thank you for your a lot of new commissioners that are involved in the reviews. We had 9 reviewers this go around. Mary is one, and we're always happy to have. We always need members from the BUEA to be involved in that process. So I'll be reaching back out to BUEA board members. I know Mary's done the past too. Tracy has done some in the past. So maybe Scott, I don't know, just to throw you under the bus next go around, it would be great to have you. But and we try to keep it limited too, so that you're not reviewing all the applications, but there's a healthy spread so that everybody's reviewing. There's no conflict of interest, implicit bias, those kinds of things.
All right, does somebody have a motion that we move forward with these fundings?
I'm happy to make a motion on that. Does someone have the right numbers? I think I kind of did it. I came up with 48,725. Is that what you guys think?
I think that's right.
Yes.
Okay, so I would move approval of $48,725 from the for the 2020 Fall Recovery Forward out of the Recovery Fund, and approve that as presented to the recipients as listed in the packet.
Second.
Second from Jackie.
All right.
Jane, you want to do the call?
I would. Julie,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Jackie,
Yes.
Alex,
Yes.
and Tracy.
Yes.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you, but everybody for all their work, but especially Sean and Mary on this. But it is exciting that we're helping these groups, and I think that's just a great thing. So
Yeah.
Thank you all.
And
That's
these
tremendous. Thank you.
small amounts of money, relatively small amounts of money, go really far for these arts organizations who are used to operating on shoestring budgets. So it might not seem like a huge amount, but it will ensure their futures. So thanks, everyone.
that's good. Jane, next on our agenda is unfinished business. Do we have anything?
I don't think so. I'll just note some of the action items we identified earlier and dealing with the receivables and payables, and that I'll be setting up a meeting with Julie and Karen to look at year-end financials and think about 2021.
Get you online access for QuickBooks too.
Yeah.
Yep. So, all right. Is there any other general discussion? If not, this might be our shortest meeting in history. So, if not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Our next meeting is December the 9th, and we will be on Zoom for that. And hopefully all of you can join us. But if someone has a motion to adjourn,
So moved.
Second.
all in favor, I think
Aye.
we should say aye.
Okay.
Well,
Thanks,
thank you.
all.
Thank you everyone for all of your help with all of this information. We appreciate it. So have a good
Happy Thanksgiving.
Have
Yeah.
a good Thanksgiving. So a very different Thanksgiving, but a good Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So anyway, thanks everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.